Welcome to Say More from Boston Globe Opinion. I'm Jim Dao, the opinion page editor. Freddy Guevara has been in exile for more than 5 years. He was forced to flee his home country of Venezuela because he dared challenge the regime of President Nicolas Maduro. As a politician and opposition leader, he was threatened and jailed, and he has strong feelings about what's happening in his country right now. Guevara is now a visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School here in Boston. He's joining me on Zoom from New York, where he's visiting before the next semester starts. Thanks for joining, Freddie.
Thanks for inviting me, Jim, and thanks for everyone who's listening.
So start off by telling us about your initial reaction when you heard that U.S. forces had arrested Maduro. Where were you at the time?
I actually was in Bogota, closer to Venezuela now. I was there, I was sleeping, and I got a call from a friend who works in like monitoring news. Actually, this friend was shot by some Maduro's gunmen, and I was having dinner with him the night before, and I remember that we were, talking about like, do you think it's gonna happen? Do you think it's not gonna happen? And I told him like, you know what? Probably we're never gonna know, and we're just gonna wake up one day in the middle of the night, and they're gonna see like, oh, Maduro's gone, and we were laughing about that. He was the one that started calling me at 1:30 a.m. Then it was, I didn't wake up, Then he kept calling me and I was sleeping. And when I finally woke up, he told me the news. And I just saw like the first part of the news that was like they were bombing, right? And it was like, what is happening? All of this. And then he called me again. He was like, Freddie, I don't know if you understand or you saw it. Like Maduro is gone. And I was like, what?
Wow.
Maduro is gone. And I was like, I don't get it. How did it happen? And then he sends me Trump's tweet, and I start crying, right, of happiness.
Uh,
And which was also kind of interesting because my partner, she's from Austria. She doesn't speak Spanish at all. She wasn't understanding anything of what's happening. And she was like, why are you worried and then crying of happiness and speaking Spanish? Please explain to me. So
well,
it
so
was also funny for her.
certainly, I think I speak for a lot of Americans saying we were shocked. I was shocked to hear
Yeah, I
about
mean, I was
this.
shocked too.
You were shocked too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Some people might
Which
be
is weird
surprised that you were
because
surprised.
I
Yeah.
think which is weird. It's, I mean, if you, if we see, if we remind what was happening before, and if we remember, sorry, if we remember what the Trump administration was saying and what Trump was saying for many weeks, I don't know, this shouldn't be a surprise because they
Hmm.
were warning him. But I think that maybe we're used to that in politics in general, there's a lot of like threat, right?
Hmm.
And empty threats. And I
Hmm.
think like many people thought that this was not going to happen. And I think that also it was the president in 2020, like the previous administration, not Biden, the Trump one, that he was also talking about like, all we're gonna have all the options in the table. And he also threat
Hmm.
from military. He used the military threat, but it didn't happen. So I think like kind of everyone, including for sure Maduro, were really, really sure that it was going to happen. But
Hmm.
if you remember what they were saying, it was pretty clear that they were going to go after him. So,
Hmm.
but of course, we have a saying in Venezuela that it's, I don't know how to translate it, and probably you have something similar in English, which is one thing is to summon the devil, and a different thing is watching him come. So I think, it was kind of like this. We all thought that it was going to happen, but not. And then when it happened, all of us were
You're
shocked.
still surprised. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so the Trump administration, the president himself, didn't really consult with Congress about it. They didn't really consult with any allies about it. They just did it. And they've been sharply criticized by Democrats in the United States for going about it in that way. But you've made clear that you're pretty happy with the results here, that they've arrested Maduro and whisked him away to New York for trial. So explain why you feel that way.
I have to say that I want to empathize with Americans in the way that I understand. And I have to say I'm envious. I feel envy that you can criticize your government,
Mm,
that you can do all of the things, that you have accountability, that you have a Congress. And I think that's the foundation of democracy, that you have to actually,
yeah.
make sure that your government, the people you elected, or even if you don't elect it, at least they're the people that won the election, complies with the constitution and the law. So that's a thing that I am not concerned or mad about. But I have to say that many Venezuelans feel very bad, including myself, when this accountability process gets transformed into weaponization of the
Mm,
Venezuelan cause for bipartisan discussions, for bipartisans, no, sorry, for partisan discussions within the
right.
United States.
Mm,
I have to say that I understand that for many Americans, this is an internal issue. I can understand that also it's a thing about international order. But I have to say that for Venezuelans, this is a matter of survival.
mm,
So when you are in a state of need, you don't really care too much about what's happening. And of course, that's not the ideal world. That's not the ideal state. But that's what happens when you are in the base of the Maslow hierarchy and you don't have anything to eat, or you are imprisoned, or you don't have basic rights.
mm,
So what Venezuelans feel is relief and hope,
mm,
because a butcher, a criminal that were oppressing us, is now facing justice.
mm,
So I understand that there's a lot of history and trauma about American actions, foreign interventions, particularly in Latin America. But I have to say also that Venezuela is not Iraq, Venezuela is not
mm,
Afghanistan,
mm,
and we are, have to say, grateful for this guy being away. And
mm,
we wanted a different outcome, but this is the world where we live in. And I think that the reflection is not, oh, how do we, defend the international order that is not working? Because
mm,
I believe in rule of law, of course, and I believe in the international, I believe in building an international order that works. But, and I'm going to use the words of a friend who was in prison, like, if the international order couldn't protect me or my friends of being tortured and imprisoned, but it can protect Maduro of not being detained, then it's not just that it's not working, it's that it's
yeah,
working
that's
against
interesting.
me.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that Trump is a bit of a hero among Venezuelans right now?
Yeah, I have to say yes. I have to
Mm,
say yes. I know that for many people that that don't support him or oppose him, that might be very harsh. And I will assume that most people that hear this podcast don't support Trump. But I will have to say, feel empathy. What I would like to say is like, don't judge the Venezuelans in terms. This is not a policy issue for Venezuelans. They don't care. They don't know very much like what are his stances on many things.
mhm.
It's just like, I have a bully here, and then here's kind of a cop that can help
Interesting.
us and
Yeah.
stop the abuse.
Tell us about what happened to you in Venezuela. You were a politician. You were a member of the parliament. You were vice president of the parliament. You led a resistance movement in 2017. What happened to you under Maduro's regime?
Well, in December 2015, we won the parliament, the two-thirds of the parliament. And since that moment, Maduro started to block every decision. Then he decided to close the parliament. And by that time, I was vice president of the Congress, of the parliament. In Venezuela, we only have one chamber. So we called people to the streets. People supported us because people voted for us. And during that process, of course, we led a lot of resistance. Maduro, repressed very harsh. He's accused of crimes against humanity because what he did during those protests, there was a lot of people killed and tortured and imprisoned and
Mm,
exiled.
right.
And then in one day, they decided to go after me because at that moment I was, let's say, a public figure that was leading the protest, let's say.
Were
I
you were
was not
you
the only one,
Can I
but
just interrupt for one second? You
yeah.
were was your party the main opposition party? Is that correct?
Yeah, we're a coalition. At that moment, I would say that yes, in terms of like, because many of us were the ones that were up front. But it's a coalition, and in the opposition, like it's like you have peaks of one party of leadership, and then comes and goes. I think, like in general, it's a collective effort, right?
Got it.
And but at that time, I was kind of one of the main faces or the leader in the protest, and they went after me. Luckily for me, I got a serendipity. Really, was very lucky for me that I found out that they were going to go to my place, the police, to capture me
Mm,
before they arrived. So I escaped, and I went to a ambassador's house, which was a friend, and then the ambassador of Chile offered, when it was already public, that actually they went to my place and it was on all the news that they were surrounding my place. they offer like, hey, I don't know if he can get here, but if he can, we can give him protection. So I went to the house. I was already outside. The ambassador of Spain helped me to get there. I was in his trunk,
Mm.
and then
Huh.
they left me inside. And because embassies have immunity, the police couldn't get inside. And I spent there 3 years in house arrest.
Wow. You were actually in the trunk of his car.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. First in the trunk of my girlfriend's car of that moment, and then on with the ambassadors.
Wow. So what would have happened to you if you had left the Chilean embassy? Are you sure you
Well,
would have
what
ended up
happened
in
to me
jail?
after? Sadly, I know because then I left the embassy and I got imprisoned.
I see.
So sadly, I know what would have happened to me because it did. There was, after kind of 3 years, there was another negotiation process and I was released. And it was allegedly a pardon. But then 4 or 5 months after, they, catch me in the middle of a highway, they block my car and they put me in prison.
Wow.
So I spent roughly more than 1 month in solitary confinement
Mm.
in this prison that Trump is saying that is going to be closed now, and that I'm very happy that if that happens, because this is a prison that in my cell I didn't have either windows or fresh air or
Mm.
sunlight. They didn't allow me to see the sun. I think just 3 times in all that time. But I have to say that I am one of the luckiest ones that I can tell this story
Mm.
because I know people that died, like I know them. There was a friend of mine that died. I know other ones that are still there. I know other ones that actually were managed to also, they are free, but the emotional or physical scars are so hard that
Mm.
they cannot live a normal life like the one that I'm living. Of course, all of us are traumatized and PTSD and all of this, right? It's impossible to not have. But, I know that there's many people that live way worse things than I did.
Mm. Mm. Do you think that that kind of repression and intimidation is still continuing, even though Maduro is now gone?
Right now, we still have approximately 800 political prisoners.
Mm.
By the time that we are recording this is still like only 11 people have been freed. But I hope that this can change during these next days because the Trump administration said that they're going to free a lot of political prisoners, and then the members of the regime in Venezuela said that they're going to do it, but still it haven't happened so far.
Mm.
But also, is the thing is that we just not need the free of political prisoners because we need to end the revolving door, right? Because you can free 100 political prisoners and then 2 more 100 people, put them more in jail. So as long as the control of the security forces and the judiciary branch are in control of the regime, this can happen.
So how were you able to leave or flee from Venezuela? Tell us that story.
Well, in 2021, there was a mediation process, a negotiation process that was promoted from Norway and Mexico to have a negotiation process between the regime and the opposition. The opposition appointed me as one of the negotiators. So then Maduro needed to take me out of the jail if he wanted the negotiation to start. By that moment, he was interested not because he wanted a negotiation to achieve democracy. They were just interested in lifting sanctions, economic sanctions. That all the thing that they were interested in was that. So they wanted the negotiation to start.
I see.
They left me out of jail 4 days after I was in a plane and landing in Mexico. And when I was in Mexico, they told me that I wasn't allowed to go back.
Oh, I see. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And then you made your way to the United States.
Yeah, I was there and I flew to the United States. And then I started wondering like, okay, what am I gonna do with my life, What can I do here? So then I luckily got this offer with Ash Center at Harvard
Mm.
with Professor Tarek Masood and Ricardo Hausman.
Mm.
Both appointed me as they helped me to get there as a fellow. And then I did my master there because a friend of mine told me, like, you
Wow.
know what, in the United States, your degree doesn't worth anymore. You need an American degree.
Hmm.
I did my master there. I learned a lot. And then I keep working now with also in the Ash Center, but now with Professor Erica Chenoweth. And my work is focused on counter autocracy, trying to
I see.
mix all the lessons learned from what I got from Venezuela, but also with other friends that I know from Nicaragua, Belarus, Myanmar, and we're trying to create like this global effort to have lessons learned to confront authoritarianism.
Got it. Well, so now, perhaps ironically, you and Maduro are both in New York City,
Yeah.
maybe just a couple miles from each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
We've seen pictures of him wearing jailhouse scrubs.
I
Uh,
had the same suit that he had in jail, like the same one that he was using.
oh my
He put
gosh.
me one like that, the exact same thing.
Well,
And it had, yeah, it was crazy.
that's one of many sort of strange paradoxes here. He
Yeah.
has a lawyer, he'll get a trial, and you didn't get those things when you
No, at
were
all.
in Venezuela. How do you feel about that? Do you resent that a little bit?
Oh, of course. I mean, I don't know. I have to say that, of course, I have like this dark spot in my soul that is happy for him, let's say, from the that he's kind of suffering, to be very clear. But at the same
Mm,
time, I think most of my thoughts are on like, why did we even have to get into this point, you know?
mm,
This guy had so many opportunities to to offer a different solution, to pave a path for a safer and more cleaner solution for everyone else. But he decided, I think it's like the same syndrome that all of these autocrats have. Like they believe that they're untouchable, immortal, and that no one will touch them. So this overconfidence bias, let's say, got us into all of this trouble. And it
mm.
wasn't necessary, really. He had so many opportunities.
Well, Freddie, after Maduro was captured by the US, the vice president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, condemned the US military operation. But then President Trump said the US was prepared to work with her and with other members of the government. In a recent interview with the Boston Globe, you said Rodriguez, quote unquote, betrayed Maduro. Can you explain what you meant by that? It sounded almost as if you were saying that perhaps you cooperated with the Trump administration in helping them, locate and arrest him. Is that what you were trying to say?
Yeah, for sure. Um, First, this I would have to say like there's three facts that can help us to get into this conclusion. The first one is that this was already framed by the Miami Herald and by the New York Times.
Hmm.
In both media, there was this plan, like say, like, hey, there's reports that the Trump administration is trying to have this deal with this, and they're trying to promote like a Maduro with a regime without Maduro, but with Delcy. And she has a lot of businessmen because, as all autocrats, they have their own oligarchs and things like that, and they were trying to promote in the United States this vision. So we have media that reported this before. The second thing is that, of course, American military power is overwhelming. No one, can deny that. But the fact that there was zero casualties, you cannot just enter in the main military base of a country, know where the guy is, capture him, leave without nothing else happening. So again, I think that the operation was military. Let's not discuss anything else, but just like military from the military perspective, it was something impressive. It was like a movie. But I have to say that I find very weird that. And the most important one is that the son of Nicolas Maduro said in his first appearance that sooner or later the traitors will come. Everyone will know who were the traitors. And if then you
Wow.
have to act like a detective or a lawyer, right, in a court, like who got benefited from this? She and her brother. So I don't have any doubt that they were part of this operation, and they are now being the ones who are benefiting from his capture.
Interesting. Um, well, tell us more about Delcy Rodriguez. What do you know about her? You obviously served in government with her. What do you expect her to be like as the new president?
I have zero hopes. Let's say
Hmm.
Northern Syria said like 99.9 distrust and just 0.1 or 0.0001% of trust, in the sense that I know her. She's not a moderate at all, at all. She believes the things she says. She really thinks like the economy in Venezuela was bad, not because of the destruction and corruption they made. No, it was because there was an economic war. It was before the economic sanctions, right? And she really believes that there's like, they have like all these crazy theories. She's a hardline ideologically, and also her brother. And they believe that they're smarter than everyone else. And I'm sure that now they feel very confident because they managed to get into power without even being elected ever. She has never run like even to a city council or like
Hmm.
a city clerk or nothing.
Wow.
And now she's the, interim dictator of the country. Her brother is worst.
Huh.
He's the biggest manipulator ever, and they are. I believe that they are the people that are to blame for not having a negotiated solution before in the past.
Interesting.
However, I will have to say that history is full of surprises. And, we'll see a lot of democratic transitions that occur between a dictatorship and then a democracy with people within the regime that may surprise us. So I don't trust them. I think they're going to try to outsmart Trump. I think their plan A is to try to get a version of Saudi Arabia or China in Venezuela, like open economy, but closed politics.
Interesting.
If they don't manage to do that, they're going to try to outsmart Trump in terms of time, play with time and try to find if the Senate and the Congress blocks his ability to use force or to wait what happens with the midterms. And then if the Democrats win the House or the Senate and then they block or anything, or then if impeach him, or if, I don't know, Putin invades Lithuania or China, they are going to buy time. That's their strategy always. And they really believe they are the most smart, they're the smartest people on earth.
Interesting. Yeah.
So let's see what happens.
Mm. Well, talk to us about Maria Corina Machado, the opposition leader who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2025. Trump has said she lacks support in Venezuela and doesn't have enough, I think he said, authority to run the country. First of all, do you agree with that assessment?
No, of course. I mean, I think I am not an interpreter of Trump, but I believe what he meant was with the people that are now running the institutions, right?
Huh.
So, but I think it's very clear that Maria Corina is the leader of this country. I would not say just on the position. I think like every poll says that she's the most important, but it's not only about the polls. The last primary that we had, she won with 90% of the votes from the opposition.
Hmm.
And that the opposition won with 70% of the votes of, we have all the tallies, and that's why no one recognized Maduro. So I think that Maria Corina is the leader, is the most respected leader in the country. However, I think the Americans, like the main assessment they did is like, if they wanted a negotiated transition with the regime, probably the regime said like we're not going to do it with her. That's what I think it
Hmm.
happened. But I am absolutely sure that if we have an election, she will win.
Hmm. Well, so what will it take to get to that election, do you think? What is the next step that's necessary? And quite frankly, how hopeful are you that democracy is still possible?
This is a very important question because I think this is the pathway that we need to make every American follow, or at least in the bipartisan way. We don't want, we don't need everyone to agree on what happened, but what we need is to everyone, jump on the path of having a transition to democracy. For that to happen, we need first, of course, to have all the freedom of all political prisoners. That's the first thing.
Hmm.
The second thing is that we need warranties for the political opposition can come back to the country because most of all are in exile, and that we can operate in the country. So this means that somehow we need to work with Trump and the international community to make changes in the security apparatus, to have safeguard guardrails. So if that we can dissent without being imprisoned or killed.
Hmm.
And then, if we have those two, then we can start making politics again. And then you can have formal negotiations about when it's going to be the election, what type of elections. Our side has never like denied that we need a negotiation. We are aware that doing these things will require to give pardons, amnesties, that we're going to have to swallow decisions that we don't want to swallow, that is going to be imperfect, but at least all these processes needs to end in a free and fair election.
Hmm.
And what we want is that this to happen. We believe that we can align American interests with oil, with immigration, and with national security, with freedom and rights in Venezuela. I think that's very possible.
Hmm. Well, so Machado, I believe, is supposed to meet with Trump next week.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah, and she's been trying to be accommodating towards him. She even said that she'd be willing to give her Nobel Prize to him. Even I'm not sure that's possible, but she said that at least. Um, what are you hoping will come out of that meeting?
I think more coordination for sure. And particularly, I think the most important element of that meeting is to transmit that, they cannot let their guard down, because these people are specialists in surviving pressure.
Hmm.
And they are advised by the longest dictatorship in this hemisphere. So I think that's why it's very important to keep the pressure on, and that if they feel that if they can do whatever they want without more consequences, for sure we will not have a democratic transition.
Hmm.
If they feel that if they deviate from a transition, they will pay the price. I think we're going to be, in a good path. We don't need another second wave if they don't deviate from that. And I understand that most Americans, particularly people from the military, will say we don't want to get involved in that, and I understand it. But I have to speak for the Venezuelans. I am not, an
Hmm.
American. We have to say like we cannot achieve this now. Now that we're here, I wanted a different thing, but now that we are on this boat, we need the support of all United States in order to get us, to a
Right,
safe place.
right. And just to clarify, when you were referring to them, you were talking about Rodriguez and the current
Yeah, 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 for
government.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of Cuba, I heard you say recently that you believe the Cuban people won't ever be free unless some outside power steps in to overthrow their government, which has a very powerful military. Are you actually hoping that the Trump administration might do that? They've been talking belligerently towards Cuba as well as towards Greenland, of course. What do you think
No,
about
I don't
that?
think I don't think that it will be required in Cuba. I think that when the dictatorship in Venezuela falls, I think that we will be in a way better position to promote a transition there. And I think a new Venezuelan democratic elected government will be able to help a lot without the necessary of force. I hope that it's not required. And we hope not. I mean, force has to be like the really last resort. And we're gonna try to do other things. And I think like, we can help on that.
Hmm. Are you thinking of going back to Venezuela now that Maduro is out?
Yeah, of course, that's on my plan. I will hope to do it very soon. Now, still, it's not safe. The
Hmm.
same people that are in the accusation of crimes against humanity and that are in the indictment against, against Maduro are in charge of the police and the military. So, we are not safe there. However, I am hopeful and I believe that this can happen. As Secretary Marco Rubio stated, like in this three-stage process that he publicly draw. In the second stage, it will be like an amnesty and the ability for us to go back with guarantees. Probably in that stage, many of us will be able to go back. So yes, I'm planning to go back.
So you are an expert in authoritarianism at Harvard, obviously because you've experienced it. Um, and in the United States, there are a lot of discussions about President Trump, and to some people, he is moving the country towards authoritarianism. Um, I'd love to sort of know what you think of this as someone who has really lived it and been persecuted by an authoritarian regime. Do you think Americans are sort of exaggerating what's going on, or can you sympathize with that feeling?
I mean, I have to say that I am very careful when I try to make opinions of other societies,
Mm,
particularly in the United States. I'm an immigrant here, right? And in addition to this, we are very much dependent also on what the Americans do in order for us to have freedom in Venezuela. So I am not in a position to give lectures to Americans to what they have to do or what they don't have to do. However, I will have to say that I believe it's, you know, I'm not going to reduce your problem to this. I'm not saying
Mm,
that this is the only problem, but this is the one that I am comfortable talking about. I think that some of the things that I've been finding here that for me are very complicated is how deeply divided this society is, but also geographically divided. And what I mean with
mm,
this is that I've seen polarization is a thing that happens in most of the societies that have democratic backsliding or authoritarianism or problems or polarization. Polarization is something that is happening in most of democracies now. But I think the particularity in the United States is that this is a polarization that I haven't seen in other places. It's not common to find a country in which an entire area is just one color, and then an entire area is just one another color. And then they have different ecosystems of beliefs, of media, of universities, of
mm,
think tanks, of leaders. So I have to say that, in my opinion, and this is a very long shot, I am not as concerned for an deep authoritarianism in the United States. I believe that you have strong institutions, that you have a strong federalism. I am more concerned here about the viability of the United States because I think that I don't know what's the concept of the unifying concept of what it is United States now. I live in Massachusetts,
mm,
that and I live in Cambridge. Most people there are liberal or even woke. You can put it like in that way. And I travel a lot to Tennessee for personal matters and to
ah,
Florida because many Venezuelans live there. And it's like different worlds.
mm,
So I think that in addition to all the other problems that you have, I am worried that it seems like in this society, it's like, I don't know, Trump won, and then everyone thought like, and that the country thought in one way. And then Biden wins, and then everyone thinks that the country thinks in a different way. And then if you see the results in the last elections, in the last 20 years in the United States, non-president, with exception of Obama won, but in Obama too, it changed again. No one has won with more than 5%. So you have a deep polarization that is increasing and that it's becoming harder and harder to have a middle ground, but it doesn't necessarily mean to, compromise on your values,
mm,
but trying to find a middle ground. And that happened in Venezuela because, and I think this is something that I will be comfortable also to say to both sides. I think that the only advice that I dare to say to Americans is that don't believe that the other side is full of bad people, ignorant people, or that you are the only one, that your side is the only one that has, you know, all the reasons, all the right reasons. Um, I don't want to relativize anything, but I will just have to, you know, I will just have to invite to you to not make the same mistakes that we did in Venezuela at the beginning. When Chavez was
mm,
elected, we in the opposition we thought that the people were just making a mistake and that they were just being dumb or even stupid and underplaying, undermining their capacity, right? And even though I would have never voted for Chavez, I have to say that when we started to understand that the other side also had reasons,
mm,
it was way easier. And it
mm,
was that path that made us to build the majority that we are now
mm,
and have a different approach that I believe is going to help us and it's building the foundations for a democratic transition. So I think, the United States of America needs to be a United States of America and not just,
mm,
what it's becoming now.
mm. Well, that's profound. Freddy Guevara is a visiting fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School. He is a Venezuelan politician. Thanks so much for talking with us
No,
today.
thank you very much. And thanks everyone for hearing us.